Welcome to NJ Crime Talk, Episode 1, Hatred in Newark. As many of you know, here at NJ Crime Talk, we stay as tuned in as possible to what's going on here in the Garden State. On today's episode, we will be exploring a murder that took place on May 11, 2003. Since we will be discussing a serious crime of graphic nature, viewer discretion is advised. This incident, taking place on May 11, 2003, took a developing soul and ended it far too soon. 15-year-old Sakia Gunn held promise as a basketball player and was an A student looking ahead to becoming a senior at Newark's West Side High School. Instead, she was fatally stabbed returning home from a night out with her friends. While waiting for the number 1 NJ transit bus on the corner of Broad and Market Streets in downtown Newark, Gunn and her friends were approached by 2 men who made advances towards them. The girls rejected the men's advances and declared themselves as lesbians. Angered by this, the men attacked the girls. Bravely, Sakia fought back, but unfortunately this would lead to Richard McCall stabbing her in the chest. Immediately, the 2 men fled the scene, driving off in a panicked hurry. Sakia's cousin, Valencia Bailey, was able to flag down a Good Samaritan that drove them to University Hospital. Tragically, it would be too late, as Sakia Gunn died in the arms of her cousin, Valencia Bailey. Several days later, Richard McCall would turn himself in, ultimately being arrested on May 16, 2003. McCall would enter a plea deal that would see the murder charges dropped in exchange for aggravated manslaughter, aggravated assault, and bias intimidation, which he pled guilty to on March 3, 2005. Richard McCall even attempted to blame Sakia by stating she, quote, ran into his knife, end quote. This was deemed a lie. On April 21, 2005, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He was released on May 13, 2020. The killing and the verdict did not go entirely unnoticed, as in 2004, Ann Hull of the Washington Post dedicated a 2-day series to Sakia Gunn. Hull was able to capture the moments and words when Valencia Bailey and Felicia Holt addressed 500 students at West Side High School. Ann Hull describes in her article, quote, after Sakia died, Valencia filled page after page of a spiral notebook, penning an epic rap poem about her best friend, bled to death in her arms. Now, in this overheated auditorium on a winter's night, her poem of gay friendship and loss becomes the 2004 class anthem about the precariousness of teenage life in Newark, where 4 West Side students died of gunfire in a year. End quote. Here is some of Valencia's poem. Stuffed with the knowledge that the streets provided, even though we said we weren't gay, we couldn't hide it. So in all the times we were hurt and denied it, we knew the truth. We had proof. You was me, I was you. Kia, why did you have to go? I am so cold, facing the world on my own. To highlight the reactions further, we would like to shed some light on Kim Pearson, a professor at the College of New Jersey. Using the LexisNexis database, Pearson compared the media coverage of Sakia Gunn's death to the 1998 murder of Matthew Shepard, a young 21-year-old white man attending the University of Wyoming. 659 stories were found in major newspapers about Shepard's murder, compared to 21 articles about Gunn's murder in the 7 months following the vicious act. Pearson noted that not only were Shepard's attackers tried and convicted during this period, but that it took nearly that long for Gunn's attacker to even be indicted. There was also immediate outrage with Newark's gay and lesbian community. Together with GLAAD, an American non-governmental media monitoring organization, originally founded as a protest against defamatory coverage of gay and lesbian demographics and their portrayals in the media, the community rallied to the mayor's office with a list of demands, including, but not limited to, the establishment of a gay and lesbian community center, police officers to patrol the Newark Penn Station/Broad Street corridor 24 hours a day. The creation of an LGBT advisory council to the mayor, and that the school board be held accountable for the lack of concern and compassion when dealing with students at Westside High School immediately following the murder. In addition, the Newark Pride Alliance, an LGBT advocacy group, was founded in the wake of Gunn's murder. Keith Boykin would also provide coverage of the aftermath of such a tragic crime, penning articles such as "She Didn't Have to Die" and "Sakia Gunn Remembered," the latter of which, posted on May 11th, 2004, opens with, quote, "A year ago today, Sakia Gunn was killed on the streets of Newark, New Jersey. A few months after the murder, I interviewed Sakia's mother, family, and friends for a magazine article that was never published. Sakia never lived to see the past year of gay triumphs. She never saw sodomy laws repealed, same-sex marriage legalized, or Britney and Madonna kissing on national television. At 15, she never even lived to see her senior year in high school. She was killed because she dared to be herself, a young black lesbian. Today, on the anniversary of Sakia's death, I look back and remember." End quote. He would continue, stating, quote, "Latona Gunn is wearing a solemn expression on her brown-skinned face as she opens the door to the gloomy drizzle outside. She escorts a reporter inside the house through a dark vestibule crammed with baby carriages and into a crowded living room lit by a single exposed bulb from a lamp with no shade. Almost methodically, she sits upright and prepares herself quietly for the questions she knows will come. Barely filling her petite-sized V-neck shirt and jeans, it's hard to believe this thin 33-year-old single mother has borne 4 children. It's also hard to believe this quiet young woman has become such a vocal figure recently in her Newark, New Jersey community. But in the past year, Gunn has given birth to 1 child and buried another. Last February, she gave birth to Kyrie, her first son out of 4 kids. Then in May, her eldest child, Sakia, was murdered on Mother's Day. Sakia Gunn was not like most girls in her neighborhood. She refused to wear pink even as a young child. Her mother laughs when asked if Sakia played with dolls. When they were given to her as toys, she immediately cut off their hair, she says. For as long as anyone can remember, Sakia preferred baggy jeans and a t-shirt over dresses and skirts. In fact, it took Latona some time to convince her daughter to wear a still large 32 jeans instead of the huge sizes she was accustomed to wearing. Sakia also had a weak spot for her grandmother. When her grandmother, a devout Jehovah's Witness, wanted to take Sakia to church one day, Sakia actually put on a dress, but insisted that her grandmother pulled the car as close to the door as possible so she could sneak in without being seen by the neighborhood kids. When her grandmother arrived, Sakia sprinted out the door and into the car. Her grandmother also persuaded Sakia to put on earrings and a pink teddy bear sweatshirt for a family photo taken a few years ago. The photo now sits on the mantel of the fireplace as Latona Gunn stares at it blankly. Latona also remembers a conversation she had with her daughter when Sakia was just 11 years old. We were sitting on the porch talking, and she said, "Ma, I don't like boys." That was when Sakia first told her mom that she was gay. Unlike some parents, Latona was not shocked by the disclosure. I told her that she was young and she still had time to figure it out. Whether or not she liked girls didn't make a difference to me. A couple years later, they both knew for sure that Sakia was gay. The rest of the family knew too. Sakia was dressing like a boy, borrowing clothes from her older male cousins, and hanging out with them as they checked out pictures of pretty girls on the internet. As a young mother, Latona Gunn knew it would be difficult for her lesbian daughter to find a support network. Nearly 70% of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered youth report experiencing some form of harassment or violence in school, and they are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide than other youth, according to the National Mental Health Association. End quote. The article written by Keith Boykin is an excellent read, and I could put the entire thing in this video, but would rather you read it in its entirety for yourself, as it feels I'm just copying his dedicated work. So I recommend clicking on the link provided in the description, along with the rest of the sources for this video. With that said, I would like to include some more excerpts. Boykin would go on to further explain what happened that fatal night on May 11th, 2003. Quote, "After hours of chit-chat, walking, dancing, and laughing, the girls took the train back to Newark after 2 o'clock on Sunday morning. Instead of waiting for the bus at the train station as they normally did, that night they decided to walk 3 blocks up Market Street to catch the bus at the bus stop. When one of the girls hopped in a taxi cab, the rest of the girls planned to get in too, but for some reason, Sakia wanted to take the bus. Sakia, Valencia, and another girl named Kamaya walked to the bus shelter at the intersection of Broad and Market Streets. During the day, this is one of the busiest intersections in the city, a place where street corner preachers heal passerbys and young people stroll the blocks wearing baggy jeans and huge white t-shirts that fall to their knees. At 3:30 in the morning, however, the corner was empty, and the police booth directly across the street was unattended. Just then, 2 men pulled up in a white station wagon. "You girls looking for some fun?" "No, we're gay," the girls replied. Hanging out the passenger window, a visibly outraged Richard McCall began yelling obscenities at the girls. The driver parked the car by the street corner. The 2 men, wearing white t-shirts and blue jeans, opened the car doors and approached the girls menacingly. Valencia describes what happened from there. "He walked up to Sakia. I'm standing on the right side of Sakia looking at him in his face," Valencia says. "The driver picked up a bottle, so I raised my fist and he dropped the bottle. A moment later, he grabs Kamaya and puts her in a headlock. Kamaya fell to the ground and then got up with a stomach pain. The man ordered Sakia to come to him, but Sakia did not move. He turns back around and whips out a switchblade and puts it on the back of her neck," Valencia says. Kia breaks loose. He went forward toward Kia. The man then plunged his knife into the back of Sakia's neck. She runs behind me and starts taking off her shirt. Her wife beater went from white to red. I ran toward her and she went into a state of shock. Kia, come on, get up. You have to get up," Valencia yelled. Sakia did not respond. Valencia said to herself, "I'm gonna kill him." But it was too late. The men quickly retreated to their car and slammed the door to drive away. When she heard the door close, Valencia had the presence of mind to get the license plate number, run back to Sakia to comfort her, and then flag down a motorist in a minivan who agreed to drive them to the hospital. As Valencia caressed her dying friend on the way to the hospital, Sakia's body suddenly gave out. Blood just came gushing out of her chest like a water fountain, and I grabbed it and put pressure on it, Valencia says. I'm like, "Come on, Kia, we're gonna make it, she says. But as they arrived at the emergency entrance to University Hospital, Sakia turned and looked at Valencia one last time. Her eyes slipped into the back of her head. She drew her last breath and died in Valencia's arms. End quote. Keith Boykin would follow this detailed explanation of events with insight of homophobia in the Black community. Boykin would go on to describe, quote, Sakia Gunn was one of the 1,300 victims of anti-gay violence reported to the FBI each year. Although many hate crimes are not reported, a growing number of the high-profile cases that are reported involve black-on-black violence. On August 12, 2002, the bullet-riddled bodies of 18-year-old Ukiah Davis and 19-year-old Stephanie Thomas, each born male but dressed as female, were found in the front seat of Thomas's Toyota Camry in southeast Washington, D.C. On November 3, 2002, Morehouse College student Gregory Love was searching for his contact lenses when he looked into an occupied shower stall in his dormitory. He apologized for the mistake, but the enraged student in the shower left the bathroom, came back a few minutes later with a baseball bat, and struck Love repeatedly, leaving the bloody body on the bathroom floor. Despite the horrific act of violence, a student at Morehouse told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, "A lot of people believe that he deserved to get beaten if he was looking in the shower stall." On December 22, 2002, 47-year-old Niza Morris, a black transgender woman, was walking near the corner of Walnut and 15th Street in Philadelphia, and she was beaten with a crowbar. Passerbys found her laying on the street in a coma, and she was taken to the hospital, where she died 2 days later. A week later, on New Year's Eve, 21-year-old Gregory Beauchamp was walking with two friends near the corner of West Liberty and Vine Street in Cincinnati. A group of young black men pulled up in a Cadillac and shouted, "Fucking faggot-ass bitches." After taunting Beauchamp and his friends, one of the passengers in the car pulled out a gun, pulled the trigger, and fatally shot Beauchamp in the chest. Some activists wonder if these homophobic attackers were acting with the implicit endorsement of the black community. Homophobia has become an integral part of black culture, they argue. Successful black recording artists like DMX and Brand Nubian have popularized homophobic music. In a recent DMX song, the rapper DMX threatens homosexuals with violence. "I show no love to homo thugs," he raps. "Empty out, reload, and throw more slugs." Religion also helps to reinforce homophobia, according to Rev. Kathy Martin, senior pastor of GSN Ministries in Atlanta. Martin, the daughter of a minister in New Jersey, became pastor of an African Methodist Episcopal church in Decatur, Georgia in 1994, but left the denomination 3 years later after she was reprimanded for affirming a same-sex commitment ceremony. "They told me, 'You're ahead of your time,'" she said. Martin accuses the black community of guilt by silence and omission, and she is shocked by the lack of outrage over the murders of black gays and lesbians. "If we see violence anywhere, we ought to be speaking about it," she says. She believes too many churches do not encourage us to love our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters. So when we see that kind of violence, we're not triggered to respond to it. If we call ourselves Christians, Martin says, this is what Scripture teaches us, loving God as we love thy neighbor. She says all neighbors should be loved. There's no list of people that are exempt from that. End quote. Earlier, we made mention of a community center. This would actually be touched upon in Boykins' article, where he details, quote, "But Latona is not happy with the city's response to the community center. Newark Mayor Sharp James spoke at Sakia's funeral and promised that he would meet with Latona to discuss the building of a community center. But 4 months later, and the mayor had not called. The city is not doing anything," Latona complains. Just 3 blocks from the corner where Sakia was murdered, Mayor James sits in his office under the gold gilded dome and gold eagles that guard the main entrance to City Hall. Catherine Cuomo-Kersey, the mayor's director of the Department of Health and Human Services, dismisses Latona's criticism. She's grief-stricken, so sometimes it's a little bit difficult to think beyond the fact that she's lost her daughter. The mayor's office explains that the city does not have money to build a community center on its own, but is looking for resources to do it. Latona is not convinced, but she might never have spoken to the mayor again had it not been for a tragic twist in a year of violence for the community. 3 months after Sakia's murder, Sakia's favorite teacher, Shani Baraka, was murdered too, and Latona was asked to speak at the wake. The Baraka murder, involving the daughter of Newark's famous poet, Amiri Baraka, drew the attention of the mayor and several city officials to the wake. That's where Latona confronted the mayor again. Mindful of the circumstances of the event, Latona did not want to cause a scene. She says she simply walked up to him and asked him a question. "Remember me?" End quote. To say the least, the initial response to the murder was not adequate. However, as we touched upon earlier, this did not go unnoticed by the likes of Boykin and Pearson, family, friends, and supporters of and from Newark's LGBT community. As we fast forward in time, we find ourselves on October 3rd, 2013, when the Newark LGBTQ Center was opened to the Newark LGBTQ community as a safe space, especially for people of color. This is following a 10-year battle with various local administrations, but the original founders were finally able to accomplish their dream of establishing Newark's first LGBTQ center, a delayed but small victory in the eyes of some. At the very least, it provided hope for better days ahead. The community center's website states, quote, "Finally, in 2013, the center was founded originally by the Liberation and Truth, a church founded in 1995 in Newark and is part of the Unity Fellowship Church movement. Founded in the 1980s in Los Angeles by Carl Bean, it began operating as the Liberation and Truth Social Justice Center and later adopted its current name, the Newark LGBTQ Community Center. Our community's struggle to create a safe space went into full gear immediately after the shocking 2003 murder of Sakia Gunn, a 15-year-old lesbian whose life was taken on the streets of Newark while she was returning home from a visit to New York City. Later, Sakia Gunn was remembered as part of the mural project called Gateways to Newark. The mural honoring Sakia is part of a mural project called #Gateways to Newark that spans over a mile on McCarter Highway and features works by dozens of artists." End quote. Here are some of those murals. While the murals stand as set reminders of tragedy, they reflect learning from the mistakes of our past, serving as a daily reminder to protect and invest in our children, to love all regardless of sexual orientation, to have hope that the future will be better than the past. The murals aren't the only reminders of what happened and who was lost. On October 28, 2023, 20 years after her tragic death, the city of Newark, New Jersey dedicated a street in honor of Sakia Gunn's memory, Sakia Gunn Way. Besides the murals, street name, and articles, there's another way Sakia's story lives on. In 2008, Charles B. Brock co-produced with Third World Newsreel, released Dreams Deferred, the Sakia Gunn Film Project, a 58-minute film we suggest you watch to learn more about Sakia and her story. Now, we would like to take a moment to give respect to the victims mentioned on today's episode, as well as their families. We hope by covering these crimes that we can shed light on despicable actions in order for us to learn from them and to ensure the victims are never forgotten. Rest in peace. Sakia Gunn, Ukiah Davis, Stephanie Thomas, Gregory Love, Niza Morris, Gregory Beauchamp. Thank you for watching. This has been Ronelle Pearson with NJ Crime Talk. Take care, stay safe, and keep the love alive.